Rhett was trudging slowly along the fence line, looking for any broken sections after the stormy night. As he bent down to check a set of coyote tracks, he noticed a faint stain on the snow. At first, Rhett thought it was blood from a hunt, but as he moved closer, his heart suddenly clenched. Lying curled up together beneath a low pine tree, nearly buried in snow, were two identical Chinese women. Their lips were purple from the cold, their bodies shivering violently. Their eyes were shut tight, their breath barely more than a wisp of fog. "Oh God," Rhett whispered, dropping to his knees. He placed a hand on one of the women. She was so cold the chill shot straight through him. Without hesitation, he pulled off his heavy coat, wrapped it tightly around them, and lifted them one by one, pressing them against his chest to share his body heat as he carried them back toward his cabin. "Do not fall asleep. You hear me? Stay awake." His voice trembled in the wind. On the way back to the cabin, Rhett could feel their breath growing weaker with every step. It felt like he was carrying their entire lives in his arms. As soon as he stepped inside, he lit a fire as fast as he could, placed the women near the stove, and put a pot of water on to warm. Then, one of them murmured something so soft he almost missed it. Rhett leaned in, whispering back, "Just keep breathing. Let me handle the rest outside." The snow kept falling. But inside the cabin, two fragile lives clung to the last warmth of winter. 2 days later, the snowstorm still had not let up. The prairie was buried under a thick, endless blanket of white. Rhett had stayed up nearly the entire time, keeping the fire going, making sure the two women stayed warm. Every time they shivered with fever, he would press his warm hand to their foreheads and whisper, "Hang in there. It is not time to give up yet." By midday on the second day, as Rhett was splitting wood out in the yard, the wind suddenly stilled. He set down the log and turned around. The women were standing in the doorway, wrapped in his blankets. They were tall and slender, with deep, dark eyes that were weary and exhausted but still alert. Their breathing was sharp and broken, almost spent. They spoke in unison, their voices hoarse and strained. "You are keeping us." Rhett did not move forward, nor did he back away. His voice was strangely calm. "You are still alive. If you want, you can go." The women staggered back inside, nearly collapsing as their hands touched the wooden frame. Rhett reached out just in time to catch their arms. They were as cold as stone. He helped them back inside. As the firelight flickered across their faces, their bodies trembled with a sudden powerful shiver. Tears welled up and clung to the corners of their bloodshot eyes. Rhett poured 2 cups of warm water and placed them beside them. "Sit down. You need your strength." They looked up at him, still guarded, but no longer desperate. One spoke, "My name is Mai." The other added, "And I am Lian." Rhett gave them a quiet nod. Outside, the storm still screamed as if trying to tear the world apart. The road leading to the nearest town was completely blocked by snow. Mai and Lian had no strength left to stand, let alone travel. Rhett added more wood to the stove, then said, "You two stay here. When the weather clears, we will figure it out." The twins stared into the fire for a long moment, then whispered, "No white man has ever helped us like this." Rhett simply replied, without pride or praise, "I just did what was right." From that moment on, though none of them said it out loud, they all knew the snowstorm was only the beginning of a bond none of them had expected. That night, the wind had quieted some, but the cold still lingered like a ghost, clinging to every corner of the cabin. Mai and Lian were fast asleep, their breathing more even now, thanks to 2 days under Rhett's care. They sat against the wall, their frames covered in bruises and older scars, their identical faces peaceful in sleep. Rhett sat by the stove, feeding more wood into the fire. The orange glow lit his face, casting a rare moment of calm in the midst of a brutal winter. Lian stirred and glanced at him for a long time before speaking, her voice rough, like every word was being torn from her throat. "You never asked us what happened." Rhett set the log down and looked at her through the flames. "I figured if you wanted to talk, you would. And if you did not, I was not going to press." Mai, now also awake, let out a faint laugh, tired, but tinged with a hint of respect. "No white man ever says that." She pulled the thick blanket tighter around her shoulders, taking a deep breath as if gathering the courage to open a door sealed shut by blood. "We were brought here to work on the railroad. They killed the men who resisted. Her voice cracked like stone breaking under ice. Leanne continued, they wanted to sell us. They wanted our spirit gone. Rhett clenched his hand slightly but said nothing. We ran, Mai said. We ran with nothing but each other, to draw them off. We wanted them to chase us so we could live. She bowed her head, fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. We thought we would die, but fate did not let us. The firelight shimmered in her wet eyes. When we could run no more, the snow came. We thought it was the end. Rhett asked softly, how long were you out there? 2 days, Leanne answered. No food, no sleep. We wandered like we were out of our minds until we collapsed right at your doorstep. Silence fell. Only the crackle of fire remained. Rhett spoke gently. You did what you had to do to survive. The twins looked at him, their eyes deep and heavy, filled with despair, but now flickering with a fragile hope. We thought we lost everything, Mai whispered. Rhett nodded toward the warmth of the cabin. No, you are here and you are safe. Leanne lowered her head, her voice breaking. And only you made that happen that night. Between the firelight and the howling wind outside, the distance between Rhett, Mai, and Leanne began to fade, not through touch, but through the wounds they all understood too well. The next morning, the snowstorm had not yet passed, but inside the small cabin, something warm and unfamiliar had begun to fill the air. Mai and Leanne were more alert now, eating the porridge Rhett had cooked. Each time they caught his eye, their own deep black eye seemed to soften just a little. Rhett was up on the roof making repairs. Despite their weakness, the twins insisted on helping, passing him tools and bits of wood. Their resilience made him glance their way more than once. By late afternoon, the snow had eased into a soft flurry. The twins stood by the window, dim light falling across their faces. Rhett walked in with a bowl of warm broth. You should get more rest. They looked at him, their eyes no longer holding the guarded look from earlier days. There was something else now, something that made Rhett hold his breath. Rhett, Mai said his name for the first time. He stopped not too far away. The twins glanced down at their rough hands, then back into his eyes, weighing every word, every meaning, every line that stood between them. You saved us. You protected us like we were your own. Rhett replied softly, I just did what was right. Leanne stepped closer, close enough that he could see her breath rising in the cold air between them. Her voice was low, steady, and so honest it hid nothing. You are a good man. Mai came to stand beside her sister, a mirror image of strength and vulnerability. They placed their hands on his chest, where his heart was pounding. Then Mai and Leanne spoke together, their words spoken not with desperation but with the clarity of survivors who had walked through fire and lived to tell it. Plant your seed in us. We need a family beside us. Rhett stood still, not out of shock but out of the weight of their trust, because the women standing before him were not pleading. They were offering their future to a stranger with open eyes and no regrets. He looked into their eyes, eyes filled with sorrow and a new spark of hope. Are you sure? His voice turned husky. They rested their foreheads against his, whispering. We have lost everything. But you are where we want to stay. There was no kiss, not then, no rush of passion. Only 3 people standing close, breathing the same air, understanding each other deeper than words ever could. Outside, the snowstorm was fading. And inside the cabin, something new was beginning. Something none of them had been searching for, yet somehow, they found each other. That evening, the snow finally stopped. The sun set behind the mountains, leaving a stretch of dusky purple and blue across the prairie. Rhett built a fire larger than usual, partly for warmth, but mostly because the cabin felt like it needed more light tonight, as if something important was about to happen. Mai and Leanne sat at the edge of the bed, the firelight dancing across their skin, bringing out every strong feature now softened by exhaustion. Rhett walked in and set a bowl of warm water beside them. Your wounds need to be cleaned again, he said, trying to keep his voice even. The twins looked at him for a long time. Then they stood, stepping slowly until they were right in front of him. Are you afraid we will change our minds? Their voices were low and solid like stone. Rhett took a deep breath. I am afraid I am not good enough for the both of you. They placed their calloused hands on either side of his face, gently guiding his gaze to theirs. "You saved us. You gave us warmth. You kept us alive when the world turned its back on us." They leaned their foreheads against his, whispering like it was a vow. "No one could be better than you." Rhett could feel their breath so close it sent his heart racing, not from desire, but from something that had bloomed too fast, too strong to be ignored. Leanne continued, "We do not want pity. We want to be chosen." Rhett replied softly, "I already chose you." The moment those words left his lips, they pulled him in. There was no rush, no taking, just a kiss. Slow, deep, filled with gratitude and a quiet hunger to live again as people, not just as survivors. Rhett wrapped his arms around them, holding their strong bodies that now trembled not from cold, but because for the first time in so long, they felt safe. That night, they lay together on the old wooden bed. Rhett gently cleaned their wounds with warm water. Each time he touched them, they closed their eyes, not from pain, but from the feeling of being cared for, something they had forgotten. As they rested their heads on his chest, their hands placed over the steady beating of his heart, "My," whispered, "if tomorrow morning you want us to leave, we will." Rhett tightened his arms around them. "Tomorrow morning and every morning after, I want you here." They smiled faintly in the dark, small smiles, but enough to change the whole winter. Their first night together was not loud. It was simply three people who had lost everything finding each other at the moment they needed it most. He married both Mai and Leanne in his heart, a union forged not by law, but by survival and a shared hope for the future. Winter seemed to linger, refusing to leave the prairie. But one morning, Rhett stepped out onto the porch and noticed the snow was soft beneath his boots. For the first time in weeks, sunlight broke through the gray clouds. The air was still biting cold, but the wind had eased. The sky was changing. Inside the cabin, Mai and Leanne were speaking softly in their own language, their first laughter since Rhett had met them echoing in the small space. Rhett paused for a moment, just watching them. A warm current ran down his spine. That feeling, the feeling of belonging, was something he had not touched in a long, long time. By midday, Leanne stepped out onto the porch where Rhett was repairing a mallet. She stood beside him so quietly he thought she had come just to watch the horizon. But then she spoke, slow and clear. "Rhett," he looked up. She stared out at the distant mountains, her breath long and full as if she had been waiting years to say the words. "We have been running month after month. From battle to battle. We have no one left." She turned to face him, and her eyes, once full of guarded strength, now revealed something unexpected, vulnerability. "We want to stop." Rhett set the mallet down and listened, fully present. "We want to stop running. We want to live somewhere we do not have to look over our shoulders every night." Mai joined them, taking a slow, steady breath, then said, "We want to belong to you. If you will have us that way." In that moment, Rhett did not think. He did not weigh it or fear it. He simply stepped forward and placed both hands gently on their shoulders. "You already do." His voice was low and steady, like a promise buried deep in the heart long ago. "You have everything you need right here." The sisters closed their eyes, their broad shoulders trembling slightly, not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time since losing everything, they felt kept. Then they guided Rhett's hands to their bellies, their breath sharp as fire. "We think we carry your children." Rhett did not answer right away. He looked into their eyes, eyes that had seen death, and now, flickered with life. He pulled them into his arms, holding them close, and spoke softly, but with the weight of stone, "Then that is all the more reason for you to stay." The three of them looked at each other and shared a small smile, the smile of people who had finally found home. That afternoon, while Mai and Leanne rested, Rhett pulled out an old wooden box hidden beneath the bed. Inside was a photograph of his late wife, the gentle woman who had left him 4 years ago during the outbreak. He sat in silence, staring at the picture. There was no more pain, only a soft sorrow that had never faded. He kissed the edge of the frame, then placed it in a deeper compartment, one only he knew. On the shelf, he placed something new in its place, a small, silk-embroidered pouch the twins had kept, a quiet symbol that he had chosen the path for his life. As the evening settled in, the three of them sat on the porch. The spring breeze swept gently across the prairie. Mai and Leanne leaned against his shoulders. No one said anything grand, but in that silence, a truth became clear. They were no longer three people lost in the world. They had become a family. Spring laid gold across the prairie. New grass began to push through the last of the snow. Rhett built a new stretch of fencing, and the twins helped lift the heavy boards. Their strength made everything feel half as hard. The cabin was no longer just a shelter from the cold, it was becoming a home built by hands trying to rebuild a life. One morning, the three of them were digging behind the cabin. The breeze carried the scent of early wildflowers. Mai handed him a few kernels of corn and beans. These were what our mother used to plant. And now they belonged to our home. That word, our, settled in Rhett's chest like something soft and unfamiliar, a feeling he thought he would never be allowed to feel again. Where once there was only wind and silence, now there was the sound of quiet conversation and shared work, the sound every home needs to come back to life. By late afternoon, the three of them built a chicken coop. Rhett hammered nails while Mai and Leanne held the board steady. To them, the world needed nothing more than that. As the sun began to set, the whole family sat on the porch. The spring wind was soft, and the scent of wood smoke hung in the air. The twins leaned against Rhett's shoulders, his arms wrapped around their waists. Leanne whispered, "We are not married." Rhett smiled, "We do not need to be. No wedding rings. We do not need those either. No preacher. No vows." She paused, looking up at him. "Does that make you sad?" Rhett kissed her forehead gently. "Homes are not built on vows. They are built on the fact that we are still here. Every morning we wake up." Mai exhaled softly, like a leaf falling to the earth. Her hand rested on her belly where a child carrying their blood was quietly growing, and Leanne's hand rested beside it. Day by day. In that moment, Rhett knew there were no rings, no ceremonies, but everything felt more real than any tradition he had ever known. The old cabin, once cold and lifeless, was now so full of warmth, there was no darkness left. The spring wind drifted across the porch, touching three people leaning into each other. A family not bound by obligation, but by the choice to stay.